Now we are in the historical moment of India's independence, 75th years independence of India, as well as it is an also auspicious moment that Sri Aurobindo came upon earth in the year 1872, 15th August. Therefore, the whole nation as well as the world observes his 150 years of birthday. The Agni Yuga Rishi, the pioneer of India's total freedom movement, Purna Swaraj, when he came in India in the year 1893, he saw the whole masses is in the total darkness. They did not even dream of total independence of India. But as soon as he came in India, he wrote the article, "The New Lamps for Old." Thereafter, the whole India suddenly emerges into a new gospel of India's freedom. Gradually, Sri Aurobindo became the champion of India's independence. He unflinchingly, uncompromisingly declared that there is no other way than the total freedom, Purna Swaraj. And his descendants came one by one, like Rajbihari Bose, Netaji Subhas Chandra, Master Subrata Sen, Baghajuddin, Khudiram, Kanailal, and others. On the other hand, following his doctrine of passive resistance, he wrote, Gandhiji came in the scene and he took the philosophy of Sri Aurobindo's doctrine of passive resistance and he initiated the non-cooperation movement which Sri Aurobindo wrote in his doctrine of passive resistance. In these hours of Sri Aurobindo's 158 years of birth anniversary, we may recount Netaji's great realizations on Sri Aurobindo. In his words, in my undergraduate days, Aurobindo Ghosh was easily the most popular leader in Bengal, despite his voluntary exile and absence since 1909. His was a name to conjure with. He had sacrificed a lucrative career in order to devote himself to politics. On the Congress platform, he had stood up as a champion of left-wing thought and a fearless advocate of independence at a time when most of the leaders, with their tongues in their cheeks, who talk only of colonial self-government. He had undergone incarceration with perfect equanimity. His close association with Lokmaanya Bij Tilak had given him an all-India popularity, while rumor and official allegation had given him an added prestige in the eyes of the younger generation by connecting him with his younger brother Barindra Kumar Ghosh. Admittedly, the pioneer of the terrorist movement. Last but not least, a mixture of spirituality and politics had given him a halo of mysticism and made his personality more fascinating to those who were religiously inclined. When I came to Calcutta in 1913, Aurobindo was already a legendary figure. Rarely have I seen people speak of a leader with such rapturous enthusiasm, and many were the anecdotes of this great man, some of them probably true, which travelled from mouth to mouth. I heard, for instance, that Aurobindo had been in the habit of indulging in something like automatic writing. In a state of semi-trance, pencil in hand, he would have written dialogue with his own self, giving him the name of Manik. During his trial in the Alipur bomb case, the police came across some of the papers in which the conversations with Mani were recorded. And one day the police prosecutor, who was excited over the discovery, stood up before the court and gravely asked for a warrant against a new conspirator, Manik, to the hilarious amusement of the gentleman in the dock. In those days, it was freely rumored that Aurobindo had retired to Pondicherry for 12 years meditation. At the end of that period, he would return to active life as an enlightened man, like Gautama Buddha of old, to effect the political salvation of his country. Many people seriously believed this, especially those who felt that it was well nigh impossible to successfully contend with the British people on the physical plane without the aid of some supernatural force. It is highly interesting to observe how the human mind resorts to spiritual nostrums when it is confronted with physical difficulties of an insurmountable character. When the big agitation started after the partition of Bengal in 1905, several mystic stories were in circulation. It was said, for instance, that on the final day of reckoning with the British, there would be a march of blanketiers into Fort William in Calcutta. Sannyasis or fakirs with blankets on their shoulders would enter the fort. The British would stand stock still, unable to move or fight, and power would pass into the hands of people. Wish is further to the thought, and we love to hear and to believe such stories in our boyhood. As a college student, it was not the mysticism surrounding Aurobindo's name which attracted me, but his writings and also his letters. Aurobindo was then editing a monthly journal called Arya, in which he expounded his philosophy. He used also to write to certain select people in Bengal. Such letters should pass rapidly from hand to hand, especially in circles interested in spirituality come politics. In our circle, usually somebody would read the letter aloud, and the rest of us would enthuse over it. In one such letter, Aurobindo wrote, "We must be dynamos of the divine electricity, so that when each of us stand up, thousands around may be full of delight, full of bliss and ananda." We felt convinced that spiritual enlightenment was necessary for effective national service. But what made a lasting appeal to me was not such flashy utterances. I was impressed by his deeper philosophy. Shankara's doctrine of Maya was like a thorn in my flesh. I could not accommodate my life to it, nor could I easily get rid of it. I required another philosophy to take its place. The reconciliation between one and the many, between God and creation, which Ramakrishna and Vivekananda had preached, had indeed impressed me, but had not till then succeeded in liberating me from the cobwebs of Maya, the theory that the world is an illusion. In this task of emancipation, Aurobindo came as an additional help. He worked out a reconciliation between spirit and matter, between God and creation, on the metaphysical side, and supplemented it with a synthesis of the methods of attaining the truth, a synthesis of yoga, as he called it. Thousands of years ago, the Bhagavad Gita had spoken about the different yogas, Jnana Yoga, or the attainment of truth to knowledge, Bhakti Yoga, or the attainment of truth to devotion and love, Karma Yoga, or the attainment of truth through selfless action. To these other schools of yoga had been added later, Hatha Yoga, aiming at control over the body, and Raja Yoga, aiming at control over the mind through control of the breathing apparatus. Vivekananda had no doubt spoken of the need of jnana, knowledge, bhakti, devotion and love, and karma, selfless action, in developing an all-round character. But there was something original and unique in Aurobindo's conception of synthesis of yoga. He tried to show how, by a proper use of the different yogas, one could rise step by step to the highest truth. It was so refreshing, so inspiring to read Aurobindo's writings as a contrast to the denunciation of knowledge and action by the latter day Bengal Vaishnavas. All that was needed in my eyes to make Aurobindo an ideal guru for mankind was his return to active life. Subhas Chandra Bose, in his realizations of Sri Aurobindo, the words he wrote in his famous book, An Indian Pilgrim, or autobiography of Subhas Chandra Bose. Vande Sri Aurobindo, Vande Mataram, Vande Bharat Aurobindo, Laho Pranam, Laho Pranam, Laho Pranam.